Are you ready to start leading a remote team? Find out in today's episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Shopify. Build a beautiful e-commerce store in minutes with the #1 platform in the world. To start your store the right way, go to servenomaster.com/Shopify now.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master Podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
It's a beautiful morning. The sun is rising. It rained last night, so it's not too hot. And the birds are singing. It's just unfortunate that most of the birds near my house are rooster. But the sounds you hear in the background are the sounds of island living. And I like to bring that up at the start of each episode just in case this is your first time here. So you won't be surprised that you're not hearing the sound of me in the silence of a spaceship. Instead, you're hearing the noise of tropical living. It's never actually quiet here. You just don't notice until you start to record. And while you're listening to this episode, if the background noise has been removed pretty well, if you don't even hear any birds, well, that's a sign Gene did a good job. So please give him a thumbs up so that he knows he did a great job with this video and this audio so that you can get my content. I do my best with my lapel microphone. It's right next to my mouth, and these birds are 100 meters or more away, but boy, are they loud. I've had 3 bites at the apple. I'm currently leading the 3rd iteration of a remote team for myself. And so the lessons I've learned and what I'll share with you in today's episode come from a place of experience, mostly by making mistakes. Some people get it right on their first try, and those people make me crazy. Why couldn't that have happened to me? I've had a lot of ups and downs hiring people over the years, and it's not super easy. Sometimes someone goes, oh, I hired a VA. The first person I ever tried was perfect. They're amazing. They get everything right. Their English is perfect. They never misspell anything. They've never made a mistake. Wow, that's magical. Because I've had employees lose tens of thousands of dollars with their dumb mistakes. I had an employee who messed up every single project he worked on dramatically. He lost an entire month's worth of my content. Courses I was recording, videos I'd made, all of them were destroyed because he hadn't done his job. Part of the job for someone on my team, and it used to be me, is to check my recordings every day. So I am paranoid that something will go wrong with these recordings. I record these episodes into my phone. This is how I record all my content. This is how I record my course content, my video content, my training, everything. And if something goes wrong with the microphone or something goes wrong with the app, I'm not going to catch it right now while I'm recording. I'll catch it afterwards when I do a playback. And I did that myself for 9 years. And then I finally hired someone else who was an assistant on the team. I said, here, my app automatically uploads them to Dropbox. You take those files, you clean them up, you double check them to make sure they're all fine, and then you rename them and put them in the correct folder for the project. Well, for an entire month, he never checked the files. He just lied and told me. Then I found another project he worked, and that was devastating for me, by the way. To redo an entire month of your life did not feel good. It really hurt. It took me a long time to fix all that. I was like, I can't believe it. Not all the recordings were destroyed, just about 80%. So I had to go through and see which ones had to be replaced. The best is when part 1 of a 2-part series was missing, and I had to try and redo part 1 because I didn't want to redo both parts. And so you had to remember what you covered, what you didn't. It was a whole thing. It was a real nightmare. And then I forget what else they did. That was the biggest mistake. But every project they'd worked on, when I went back through them, I found they all had massive mistakes, and they quit. This individual quit and said, you know, when I first started working here, it was so fun. But ever since I destroyed an entire month's worth of work, it cost you more than $10,000, you just haven't been as fun to work for anymore. And I was like, yeah, of course not. So they quit, and it was a good thing. And that was at the beginning of the iteration of my 3rd team. But along the way, I've learned a lot. And I want to share that with you, my experiences of leading a remote team. There are people who lead much bigger teams that are in the hundreds. There are people that are so good at it. I have friends who are really great at building teams. It seems like it, but we all have similar problems. Even the people I look up to for building teams have a lot of turnover. And I want to take you through that entire process today so you can really get a feel for how I lead my remote team and what I've learned from my mistakes. So first thing I want to talk about is family, friends, and employees. When I first built my first remote team, I said to people I'd hired, look, you're part of my family. I'm going to take care of you. We're in this together. I was trying to engender the sense of loyalty, and it came from a place of naivete. That's the best way to describe it. When people are friends with you and you work together, they will take advantage of you. That's a law. If someone is your friend and your employee, there will always be conflict because one relationship is a violation of the other. If someone is your friend, you can't ask them to clean the floor, pick up the trash. If someone is your employee, you absolutely should. When I'm hanging out with my friends, I don't think my time is more valuable than them. I don't think about what I build versus what they build. When I'm hanging out with my employees, I sure do. So the two types of relationships cannot coexist, unfortunately. And I've tried this a couple of different ways, and I'm just going to be super real with you guys because that's the best way for you to learn. So I built that first team, and I remember one of the employees had a graphic designer was paying $1,000 a week, okay? $48,000 a year. He was pretty good. Not as good as my current graphic designers, ironically. Paying $1,000 a week. And I remember catching him. He was doing work for other people behind my back. He was putting in about 2 hours of work a week for me. He was stealing from me. That's the best way to describe it. And when I caught him, I fired him. He goes, but you said we were family. And I realized that by telling people they're part of a family, by making them feel like they were unfireable, by trying to create an environment where people felt really safe and said, okay, I don't need to chase other projects. I have this security. What I did was create a team that treated me poorly. And this included all the way through. At the time, I had a team of about, maybe it was 10 people as well. It was a large team. I was spending a massive amount of money on staff. I even had a personal assistant. I traveled the world. While I was traveling the world, I brought her with me. She got to go all over the world to see these amazing countries. And it turned into the exact same thing. She would put in less and less time every week until it got to the point where with every one of my employees in this phase, I was working extra hours to make enough money to make up for their work. She spent all of her time partying, going to bars, meeting loads and loads of dudes, all things I don't care about, right? Just do your 40 hours. Then you can do whatever you want in your free time. She had one of the most amazing jobs in the world. Travel the world, get your own apartment or your own room all over the world. I didn't make her stay in the same place as me, of course. She would have her own space, and she absolutely abused it. We're still in touch. I didn't stop talking to her, but I sent her back to America because she wouldn't do her job and I was losing money. It was a total waste of the investment. Happens because I treated her like a friend instead of an employee. Last I heard, now she's a waitress. 10 years later, she's still a waitress. So she, not only did she lose her job with me, her entire path on that career is gone. Now she's on a different career track. Nothing wrong with being a waitress, but believe me, traveling the world, living on beaches is a lot easier. Waitressing is hard. You're on your feet all day, but that's what happens. People don't think about their self-interest very well. They just think about now, not the long term. And it's unfortunate because I really would have liked to make that work. She was a really nice person. Unfortunately, the friendship was strong. The work was garbage by the end of it. Just absolutely unworkable. I've also tried to give jobs to all of my friends. So people that I was friends with before, I've given jobs or flown them around the world with me to give them opportunities to try and put things in front of their faces, to give them like a chance to do this for me. And I'll give them jobs that I think are easy or really manageable. And then they always, every single one of them, it turns into I can't believe you're doing this to me. Why are you making me work harder than you? Right? And it becomes really uncomfortable. So I've lost most of those friendships because of that. So don't hire your friends. Every once in a while, you see like one of those stories about two best friends started a business or a best friend hired someone. Those are the aberration. Those are the exception to the rule. And those are the reasons people like me lose a bunch of friends. If someone's already your friend, it's even worse because they have all these massive preconceptions. It's the same thing when I run into people that I knew from high school. They see me as that nerd, that chubby nerd who really didn't know how to make friends and certainly had no success with dating. They don't see me the way you do because you just met me now. You go, wow, this Jonathan lives on Tropical Island, got a whole bunch of kids, young, beautiful wife, happy relationship, good business. You see me in a totally different way than you would have if you met me when I was 15 and didn't know how to say hello. So you want to keep people in the correct categories, which is family, friends, and employees. This does not mean that I dislike my employees. What I want to talk about is the idea of loyalty because loyalty is relative. Everyone's definition of loyalty is something absolutely different. I used to have this friend. I remember this. He said something early on when we first met. And he goes, Jonathan, if we're in a bar and you get into a fight, I do not have your back. He goes, I don't have anyone's back. I'm not good at fighting. I'm good at running away. Now, he was a coward. That's true. But at least he told me up front, and I appreciated that. Because I have a friend from more than 10 years ago, long before I started this bit. He was coming outside of a nightclub with one of his friends, and one of his friends got into a scuffle with some people. I don't know exactly what happened, but his friend got into a conflict. My friend jumped in to back up his friend. The friend ran away. My friend got beat up, lost an eye. He wears an eye patch because this other person who started a fight ran away and left him behind. That's brutal. Even worse, he stayed friends with the guy, and the guy who cost him an eye then messed up his business too. He had the best forum I've ever been a part of. It was a great community, amazing things. Everyone was on an amazing journey, really great discussions, so wonderful. And this other person hijacked it, and now it doesn't exist anymore, destroyed it. Bad friends are bad friends, I guess. But the problem was, if you're more loyal than someone else, there's not going to be parity. You'll never have a good relationship, no matter whether they're in your family, they're in your friends, or they're in your business. This is a lesson that I've learned because I'm approaching 40. My wife has had to learn over the course of our relationship. She's often surprised that our employees, or local employees, don't give her the same loyalty that I do. And I've had to explain to her, you're misappropriating where your loyalty lies. Family first. I said, everyone else out there, they're going to look out for their families before they look out for us. As they should. That's normal. That's the hierarchy. So people will give you loyalty based on the category they fit into, and it's not always your same definition. So that's an important question to ask. Say to someone, what's your definition of loyalty? There are some people who will quit working for you if they get offered 1 penny more an hour by someone else. And there's some people who won't quit even if someone else offers them double. Over the course of my career, a lot of people have quit, and I've had to let go of a lot of people. It took me a long time to figure things out. An example of this is I had an employee who, when our numbers were down and my number one focus was making sure everyone was getting paid every week, I wasn't making any money. I was flatlined. I said, okay, I got to take care of this team because they don't want to lose them. Part of it's because of loyalty and part of it's because they're really doing great work for my business. And someone asked for a big raise, a really big raise. She asked for a 25% raise. And I said, what? When you know I'm struggling to pay everyone on the team, it was just the worst possible time to ask for a raise. And then her reply was, well, I can't find another job right now, so I'm not going to quit. When I said, we don't have that money, but if you can get someone to pay you that other amount, you should take it. She basically told me, hey, while things are tight, I'll keep working for you, but the second I find another opportunity, I'm going to jump ship. So I let her go. If you're going to be disloyal, at least keep your mouth shut. I didn't mind her asking for the raise. Fair enough, go for it. I always encourage people. She asked for way more than she should have, and probably because she was hoping that I'd give her somewhere in between. But the tone really didn't make me feel good. It was what about me? Not thinking about the team and not thinking about what's actually happening, right? She didn't think about the fact that, everyone is having a tough time right now. Not just you, not just me. It's all of us. In her second email, she said, oh, well, if you can't give me more money, can you give me more hours? I'm like, why didn't you start there? Why didn't you start in that place instead of going straight to the second I can get a better job or the second something else? And so I have another employee who was on half time and wanted 20 more hours. And so I just gave that other employee more hours. They're on a slightly higher wage, but I need my workers happy. And I also need them loyal. I want people who want to be part of the team because training takes a really long time. Training an employee can take me up to 3 months. I just had a problem this morning. The replacement person who I doubled her hours, she sent me some work and I looked over it and I go, wait a minute, this isn't right at all. And I realized I trained the previous person right, not her. So whenever you add someone to a new task or I bring someone in a new department, it can take weeks to train them. Because we're still continually improving our SOPs. And even though they go through the videos and the SOPs, some stuff they still need me to review and kind of clarify exactly what I need, and that's okay. In this particular instance, the SOP video actually got corrupted, so I have to record a new one. Fair enough, but that just means that the training period is long. I don't want to spend 3 months training someone who's going to quit 3 months later, because then I got to start over. Hiring is really a nightmare. I don't like doing it because it takes a lot of time and always takes longer than I want. So I don't want to make this an episode about hiring, but I post my ad, then I respond to all the people who think are the best. I send them the test to see if they can actually do the job they said they know how to do. Then I have to go through the people who don't do the test or the people who take like 3 weeks to do the test. Guess what? If I hired someone, I can't wait. When I post a job, I want to hire someone. I don't want to hire someone in a month. And it becomes a huge amount of my time investment because I have to make that final decision, and it's just a whole thing. So when I have someone, I want them to last. So while I'm not looking for people to put me ahead of their families, I am looking for people that could see themselves being part of my team for a long time. And we'll talk about company vision in a minute. But first, I want to talk about social distancing, which is a new fun term that didn't exist before 2020 as far as I knew. But the idea has existed within remote teams for a long time. The biggest issue with remote teams is that you're far away. This can be really good or really bad. The thing I always hated the most about working with a team altogether is that your manager's looking over your shoulder and being really annoying, right? When a manager has nothing to do or a manager isn't a good manager, Peter Principal, they've been promoted to their level of their incompetence. What they do is go to their boss and get instructions, and they come to you to make sure that you're doing it. So they aren't actually doing anything except for standing in the middle. What they're doing is standing in between you and where you want to. So because they don't have anything to do, they're trying to look busy too for the regional manager. So they'll be really into your business. If you're late on a project, they're going to keep checking in you. And it's so annoying, right? Having someone over your shoulder. Not every boss is that way, but many are. Some bosses are just really supportive and really good. They're there when you need them and not there when you don't. They give you the space to do your work, all of those things. But I cannot see my team. I've never met my team. What I've learned in the team I built now is that we have a purely professional relationship. I care about them in the sense that I want them to make the money they need to support their families. I want them to be able to have job security. I want them to have the resources to do their jobs. Some people do this. I'm not at this level where they have like company events and they fry their remote teams from all over the world in one place and do a thing. That's not really where I'm at yet. Maybe if I had a larger team or something, that would be part of it, but it's not quite where I'm at with my business. But I know some people go that one step further. But the real issue then is that everyone doesn't know each other. There's no like welcome. So sometimes someone new is on the team and they're spending all their time just training with me. And the other people know the name or know there's a new person, but they're not really interacting with them. They can't hang out at the water cooler and meet each other. So because of the distance between our team, we have to do two things. Number one, create structures to track their work and give them assignments. And number two, create an environment where they communicate with each other. So the hardest part is bringing people into a new team and getting them to all talk to each other. That took me a long time to figure out. So when you first start out, you don't have a lot of budget for extra tools, right? So you're just using like Skype or Facebook group chat. The problem is you have limited control because it's a public service, right? It's a wide open chat environment. So there's lots of distractions. Eventually, when we started switching to services, which did cost money, but the upside is worth it. You create an environment where you can have topic threads. So we have like a conversational thread that's called like podcast. Anything talking about the podcast, whether it's about show notes or dictation of the recordings, goes in that chat. We have one about video, where any video recording is being edited, we talk about there. We have one for product creation, one for copywriting. So different topics, right? Things we work on. So if someone has a problem, they can talk about it in that group thread. So I do that. So for example, if I'm talking to last night I was emailing or messaging in my chat server with my SEO expert. And she sent me a message in our blog chat, a message in page building, and a one-on-one message. And because we were able to separate the different conversations, we were able to have a really good communication. And because we organized those group chats, I add in all the people that's relevant. So if you don't work and you have nothing to do with the podcast, which some people have nothing to do with it, right? Our page builder has nothing to do with the podcast because it's not a page building project, right? It has nothing to do with her. So she's not in that group. So she's not distracted. She mostly, 90% of the time, is either posting in the blog thread or the page building thread because that's where her work fits. So by giving people an environment where they can have threaded conversation and split up talk by talk as opposed to one-on-one, it makes it a little easier. That's the first part of the process. The second part is continually encouraging people to ask each other questions. Saying, no, ask the other people on the team. It's okay. That's what is supposed to happen. And so now, sometimes I'll wake up and there are 30 message alerts in a chat room and I go, uh-oh, there must have been an emergency. And I go through and it warms my heart because one person comes with a problem, someone else on the team solves it by the end of that conversation. I don't need to say anything. That's what I really want. And you have to let people feel safe enough and have a communication platform where they can really communicate with each other. And when you create that, the team starts to become self-sufficient. Now, if you're just hiring your first person, part of the process is you have to set expectations, explain what the job is, how long a task should take. One of the things that I learned is time tracking software. I use Time Doctor because there's no other way to know what someone's working on. It's just a way to keep them honest, but also to do tracking. Most people, they use Time Doctor to turn in how many hours they work that week. And then I just click a button, they get paid. It's awesome. It's that convenience factor. What I've discovered is that people who you hire without telling them up front and go, oh, we're switching this platform, they take it really personally. Oh, you're accusing me of stealing hours? First of all, they probably are shaving hours because that's human nature. They might not be doing a lot, but maybe they're shaving 5 minutes out of every hour that they're working. You know, lawyers, they bill in increments, depending on the law firm. Sometimes it's 3 minutes. So they have to write down what they've done for every 180 seconds. They go to the bathroom, they can't bill that. That's why they talk about billable hours. So if you're a lawyer, you don't get paid when you're in the bathroom. For a salary, you do. But if you're hourly, well, then you got to work that hour. And that's the difference. So the benefit is I'm not over your shoulder. But the downside is you only get paid for hours you're actually working. You don't get paid for checking your email and pretending. Yes, absolutely. I'm sure stuff slips through the cracks. I'm sure that we miss stuff when we're reviewing all the screenshots. But it creates a system where instead of saying, I don't trust you, you're just saying, hey, we have software that does everything and manages your time. You put in your hours, you write down what you're working on. And just it makes it a little bit more. It just creates a system where it's a little easier for people to stay honest, and there's that temptation isn't there anymore to like play around with their numbers. When you're leading your team, bringing someone onto the team, part of it is knowing that there's this training period, which I already talked about, but this was a challenge I had early on where I'd be like, I hired you, why can't you already know how to do everything the way I want you to? Why can't you read my mind? So part of the process, the onboarding, is you're going to create videos and checklists and trainings. And what you should do is each time you're training someone on a new task, just record it. So that way the next person could just watch that video, which leads me to an important question is, what is a leader? Your job, whether your team is one person or 5,000 people, is to lead, and that's very different. There's a transition period where you go, I should be doing this work instead of delegating because I do it better, all those things. You have to let go of that because leading is very different. I spend a lot of time doing tasks that aren't as measurable. So if I'm working on the blog and I write 10 blog posts, I can say, oh, I did 10 blog posts. If I have 10 meetings with potential partners and lining up potential projects or trying to get people to pay for different things, hiring us for some service work, that's the most important thing I could be doing. Having a conversation with someone on the phone where then they send me $300, $1,000, $5,000, whatever the number is, very valuable. It just doesn't feel that way, but that's what leaders do. My job for my team is to be the rainmaker. That's to find products to promote, clients who will pay us to do work, whatever it takes to bring in revenue so that we always make more than we spend every month. So the first iteration of becoming a leader is learning that the things you train someone else to do are to let you to do things that are more leadership or more valuable, even though they're not as measurable. The second part of being a leader is that your responsibility is to train your team. It's to be there to answer questions and provide them the guidance. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this, and there's a lot of processes, and everyone has them different. Because of the size of my team, I have one-on-one conversations with my team a lot. I don't do, and this is probably something I need to move into, like one-on-one real-time conversations with each team member where I kind of break down what are you working on, what are you feeling stuck on, how can we improve processes, mostly because my team is small and we're still developing processes, right? We're still refining them. So in almost every case, anything we're working on, we're still refining the process and writing the SOPs, right? But then the next iteration is once we have that developed, then it is, okay, let's do a weekly or a monthly check-in call about each area of the business. Say, hey, where do you feel stuck? What's working? What's not working for you? How can we make things smoother? That's the next iteration. And that's just a level of maturity that my business is moving towards. And perhaps by the time you hear this, it will have. But you have to come from a place of my job as a manager or a team leader, wherever you are in your infrastructure, is to get the maximum output from your team. So instead of measuring teams, and I talked about this in some previous episodes based on the number of hours they work, right? That's a stupid. Businesses that do that are run very inefficiently. What you measure is output. So think of your business as a factory, and you want to look at each person and say, how much output are they generating? With a factory, it's easy. You could say, well, how many bolts did they screw on to the car today? Oh, 4,000? Well, then I can measure that. If they do 3,000 the next day, you know there's a dip. Because so much of what we do and our teams do is not physical, that we don't have this mindset. And this is a lot of business because most work done now is information work or technology work, right? Instead of measuring how many hours did we bill at our law firm, you want to measure how many cases did we win? How many clients did we satisfy? That's a much better measure. How many briefs did we complete? Whatever the measure is, it's more about output rather than input. Input is how many hours you put in. Output is what actually comes out the door. So when I'm looking at my team, I go, how many products did we release? How many podcast episodes? How many events? How many people did we add to our mailing list? How many blog posts? Those are measurable. And by switching to that mindset, and this took me a long time to get to, I didn't used to think this way. But now that I look at what did we accomplish, I can look at each week and say, was this a good week, an up week, or a down week? An example of this is I have a really amazing developer on my team. And boy, do I not understand a lot of what he does. That's why I have him, right? Because he's an expert who can do beyond what I can do. I can do basic blog stuff, but he can do really advanced stuff. Last night, he sent me a really long email. Actually a real long message in our message chat about our server was under attack. And he said, your security plugin is blocking it. He goes, but there's a different way to do a security plugin at this level that will be even better and make the site run faster. That part I understood. The explanation of how he was going to do it, I didn't. So when I'm measuring his work, because I'm output oriented, I don't look at how many hours he got finished. Just like everyone else, he has his own Kanban board, his own board with a bunch of little stick-it note tasks. I can look at how many got completed, how long each task took him. The output mindset allows you to assess the work of employees whose work you could not do yourself. It allows you to increase things. And then because we have that measure, it feels really good when you do a task. There's nothing like putting a check mark next to a task saying completed. Because we have that structure, we have really, really good efficiency. Every single task we give people, we create checklists, so then they complete the checklist. And the more check marks on that list, then they can feel good while they're going through the process. So as a leader, that's my job, is to put those structures in place to maximize people's work, to measure their work by output, so that that's what they're focused on. Everyone I hire, we go through this conversation. I've mentioned this in previous episodes. We talk about how many hours they need to work, what hours they need to work. And they ask if they need to work American hours, what time zone I'm in. They ask if, how they need to be available, about communication and things, because they don't know. Every company does it differently. For my company, we're output focused. I actually don't care what hours you work. I expect everyone to respond to a chat message within 24 hours, which means you can put our chat app on your phone, and then you don't even have to be at work. You can be at Disneyland and you're just replying to messages so that people know what's going on. And then you have to put in your total hours because you are getting paid based on the number of hours you work. But the real measure is how many tasks you complete. So if you get all your tasks done for the whole week. So let's say you're in the blog division. Your job is write and post 5 blog posts. If you write all 5 blog posts on Sunday and queue them up for the week, well, you're done. You don't have to do it daily. I don't care about that. I don't care when you do it or how long it takes you. I just care that it gets done. What this does is encourage efficiency. In my last job, where I was working for a large educational institution, it was the opposite. They didn't care what I got done. They just cared that I was sitting in my chair every day from 8 to 4. That was their only measure. Were you there during work hours? And that's how a lot of companies operate, because their most important thing is that people need to be there at the same time. They need to be there during business hours or working hours or open hours. And so they measure by hours, not realizing that if they were an output-based company, they would make a lot more money and their company would really thrive and grow. And this is all stuff I learned from this amazing book on leadership from the guy who was the CEO of Intel for a really, really long time. And I'll post a link to the book below. As always, I can't remember the title of the book I'm reading, but it was really, really good. It helped me. I was already doing a lot of these things, but it helped me to crystallize the explanation of how it's output-based. Because measuring people by the task of what they complete is easy, because then they know if they've done their job or not. If you've ever worked for somewhere and you've said, I don't know if I'm doing a good job, I can't tell, that's not your fault. That's your bosses. That's your managers. My job is to make it clear what people's tasks are, to let people know that it's okay to make a mistake and to learn from that mistake. I have to create an environment where people who do something wrong are not afraid to tell me, so that we can Find problems early. When someone sent me some output today, I realized that she'd taken over another employee's task and I hadn't given her the training. I hadn't given her access to the templates. It wasn't her fault. It was mine. And I said that. Failure in leadership, that means people feel secure. When people do things, the other night, my power went out. And so someone on the team had to go online and fix a problem that I couldn't do because the power went out to my whole island. And I said that, you know what, you really stepped up and I appreciate that. So a little bit of feedback that's based on their output, that matters. Your company needs to have a vision because people need to know what they're driving to. If people are just working for your company and there's no vision, then they're not going to come into alignment with your belief system. They're not going to develop a sense of loyalty. Everyone's company vision is different. My company vision is that we want to help as many people as possible break the chains of hourly work. I don't want you to get paid for your time. I want to get you to get paid for your output, just like my team. So that's my company vision. And my team is excited by that because most of them are untethered. They are employees, yes, but they work when they want to, where they want to, how they want to. And they almost never have to do anything that's synchronous. They don't have to do real-time phone calls with me. Most of my messaging, and I do a lot of audio messaging, we said record a message back and forth like a walkie-talkie. I prefer that form of communication. So that way I can send a message and reply later. I don't have to do a phone call with you. So if something happens, like my kids are going crazy, the conversation doesn't break. I don't have to hang up and say, I'll call you later. I just respond just like a chat message, right? But I just do it by voice. So my team is living my company vision. They've broken the chains. They're untethered to time. They're untethered to location. They can go on vacation, doesn't matter. They can work from anywhere they want, just like when I go on vacation. So think about your company vision because it's something that can get people in line with you. When they get excited by that, then they're part of something. People want to feel like they're part of something that matters. And I might not be perfect each of these tasks, right? These are all things I'm continually improving on. But I want to share with you because I do lead a team. It took me 3 tries. I'm finally getting something to work. Positive feedback is absolutely critical. Some people like to be really miserly with their feedback. Say, oh, I only give someone a compliment once a year so they know I really mean it. Well, guess what? Yeah, if you starve someone, they're really going to appreciate when you give them some scraps for their table, but it doesn't mean you're a good boss. What you have to do is give people a lot of feedback when they do things right, okay? When they do things wrong, you want to figure out what went wrong, explain what went wrong, and say, okay, here's where the breakdown in communication went. I gave you the wrong instruction. I didn't give you the correct training. I sent you the wrong link or the wrong asset. That's you. Most of the time, it's me. Because I didn't train them correctly. I take a lot of responsibility. If I didn't train you right, if I didn't give you the right resource, or if I didn't give a clear enough explanation, you went down the wrong garden path, that's okay, right? But when it is their mistake, I go, okay, here's what you did wrong. Here's how you can correct it. And let's turn it into a process so it never happens again. Mistakes are allowed to happen. They should just only happen once. And that's what you want to clearly explain with your team. Hey, look, you can make this mistake because you're learning. We're doing things other companies don't do. Working for me is very different. Unless you work for another internet marketing or authorship team, it's not normal. We don't operate like any other business because the things we do are strange and unique to our industry. And finally, it's about systems. I can't encourage you enough to set up systems, and systems. When people used to talk about systems, I thought they meant software systems or computer systems. They don't. What a system is a series of processes that someone operates through. So our systems are our project management software, which is ClickUp. There are time tracking software, which is Time Doctor. There are chat software, which change all the time. We have internal chat software. We use Slack for a long time and that we changed, and maybe we'll change again next year. But those systems, right? The systems for, okay, when I need a task, who do I ask? And so they know who's your manager, who's the expert in each of those things. They know who they can reach out to for questions. Okay, if I'm working on the show notes for a podcast, what do I do? Well, first they look at the picture. I write every single podcast. I write the outline by hand in a notebook. Then I take a picture of it after I record it and I attach that picture to the card on ClickUp. And the person who's doing the show notes and the transcript, they can look at that to see what the structure is. They usually follow the structure, not always. Sometimes they get out of order. And they have that. They go, okay, this is the process. I know the series of steps. They know what to do. Systems means you do the same, every task in the same order. So every blog post, we follow the same process. Every podcast follows the exact same process. Every video on YouTube or our social media channels follows a very strict process. Everything from idea to research to titles to scripts, all the way through how we edit and add in the commercial. If you spend time on my YouTube channel, you'll notice that the topic of the video means there's a different color introductory slide. So if you follow me enough, you'll notice videos about affiliate stuff are one color, videos about blogging are another. All those little things are processed. And that means it's replicable and makes your business scalable. This took me a long time to learn. I wish I started process earlier. That's why I talked about the year of process as part of my Be Your Own Boss series, because it's so important. Systems, process, SOPs, checklists. I read this amazing book called The Checklist Manifesto. Can't recommend it enough. I was at a conference. Someone recommended it to me from stage. I go, that's interesting. It's all about how checklists can decrease surgery dangers, even in countries that can't afford really good surgery equipment, countries that are really struggling to get their hands on doctors or sanitary equipment. They can massively lower the amount of people that get infections or have problems from surgery just by following a checklist. Really amazing book. And it turned me on a checklist. I said, okay, it can work for surgery, it can work for my business. By having processes in place, you protect your business. Number one, if an employee quits, someone else can fall into that space and they don't have to relearn from scratch because the processes are there. Instead of learning and developing the processes, they simply implement the existing process. Number two, when you promote that person and someone fills in that new role, they can train the new person with the processes they created. Number three, when your business grows and you're scaling and now a task that one person's doing, but now you have enough that three people need to be doing the same thing, they're all following the same process. I'm trying to increase the output of the podcast all the time. Every podcast episode gets published to our RSS feed from our podcast service. So it goes into iTunes and all those places from there. It goes onto my blog, which means it has to have a blog post with it. It has the downloadable show notes and stuff below that post. Because some people, they go to my blog and they just play the individual episode right there. Totally fine. That's how they engage. And then number three, it ends up on YouTube. That's a lot of stuff, right? So if every episode, the show notes look totally different, or each video on YouTube looked really different or used a different font, that would be a problem. By having things that are standardized across processes, we can have more people do a task, which means we can scale. And that's the beauty of process. So when you're leading a remote team, it starts with the word lead. It begins with your leadership. And the more you invest in leading the team, and hopefully you can learn from some of my painful lessons, the faster your business will grow, the more you can scale, and best of all, the more profitable the business will be for every single team member.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Serve No Master. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. And we'll be back next Tuesday with more tips and tactics on how to escape that rat race. Head over to servenomaster.com/podcasts now for your chance to win a free copy of Jonathan's bestseller, Serve No Master. All you have to do is leave a 5-star review of this podcast. See you Tuesday.
Are you ready to make your first dollar online? Grab my free guide, how to make $1,000 this month at servenomaster.com/1K.